All right, let's get into it. All right, can you guys see that?
Yes.
All right, perfect. All right, this week on Ultimate Launch is all about communication, consultation, and client experiences, turning conversations into clients. Why communication is everything as you start out your career. Communication drives conversion. So there is skill over luck. Knowledge builds confidence, both in yourself and in your clients. It builds trust between the both of you, and trust builds your client pipeline. I mean this when I say it, deals are won or lost in the conversations. Building rapport with people is so important. Understanding what their actual wants, goals, and needs are. And that's an important thing. Understanding what their needs are more than just what their wants are is so important. So we're going to go over some basics for building confidence with your clients. So we have 4 pillars of communication, and the first of those is clarity. You need to explain the process in simple terms and never assume clients understand our industry language. As a seasoned professional, I can tell you that I speak real estate fluently, very, very fluently, and a lot of times what I'm trying to say and how I'm explaining it are 2 totally different things, especially when it comes to consumers, because some of the terms that I'm using or some of the details that I'm leaving out, I'm just assuming in my own brain, because I understand it, that the consumers also understand what I'm talking about. I remember a situation I had with a client when I was explaining radon, and the client had asked me, why is a radon inspection important and what is it? And then I went into this very robotic way of saying, well, radon is a naturally occurring gas that has no scent, and it's not visible to the naked eye, and it occurs naturally, seeps up from the earth's crust, and sometimes gets trapped in basements. And she's just like looking at me and she's like, what does that mean? She's like, I don't want a dictionary. She's like, I can Google it. Like, what's it mean? And then I had to stop myself and humble myself and say, okay, I just answered you like you should have known what I was talking about. And I was very humbled by it. And I had to kind of step back and say, I'm so sorry, I was on autopilot. Radon, and then I had to explain, radon is a gas that can be harmful to humans if it builds up to high levels. Not every home or not every area has radon. It occurs outside, but it's mixed with oxygen. But when it's trapped in a house and there's not enough airflow, it could cause some nasty side effects and long-term damage to your lungs. And then I went into the process of how we test for radon and how radon is potentially treated if the levels are too high. And that made them understand. But I had to step back, take a breath, slow my words, and then start to break it down into real terms. So clarity is super important. Honesty. You need to tell your clients the truth, even if it's uncomfortable. Trust is built through transparency and not optimism. So we do not want to give our clients false hope. We do not want to sugarcoat a situation. They are paying us and putting their trust in us to tell them the truth. And sometimes the truth is hard. An example of that would be if a buyer, sees the house that they love, it's everything that they need. It checks all of the boxes of their wants and their needs. And you know that this home is just listed and you've already had a conversation with the listing agent and you know there's 2 other offers on the table. And then your client wants to put in an offer that's 25% less than the listing price because their uncle told them that they did the same thing and got the house back in 1972. So it's going to be important for you to have an uncomfortable conversation with your clients that say, my license requires that I be obedient to your wishes and put in whatever offer you want. But the prospects of you receiving the winning bid on this home are very, very slim because we are in a multiple offer situation. The home has been on the market for only a few days. And I have checked the comps on this property and it is well priced if that's the case. So having those uncomfortable conversations is important. You do need to speak with confidence. So speak with certainty backed by preparation, data, and a clear plan. Even if the answer is, I'll find out. So, and this is important. It's okay to say or to confirm to somebody, you know what? That's a great question. I don't know the answer, but I will definitely find out. Okay. So speaking with confidence instead of saying, or making something up. That's not confidence. Having confidence shows that, hey, I don't know everything. That's a fantastic question. I'm going to figure it out. Or if you do know the answer to a question, speaking very clearly and being able to provide that data or being, as I like to say, giving them the receipt of how you know that information, saying, I've already pulled the market data. Or yes, it does have a newer furnace because I have reviewed the seller's disclosure and the seller has stated such. Or there's a previous inspection that I've already reviewed for you before we came here, and then showing them the receipt of the data that you pulled. Guidance. Lead the transaction by educating and giving options to your clients. So without pressuring. So it is important that when you're providing guidance to your clients, you are educating them through the process. Remember back from our previous sessions here at Ultimate Launch, is you're not selling the home, you're actually acting as a liaison for your clients. The home either sells or doesn't sell itself. It is you they are entrusting to help guide them through the process, let them know of their options, as well as any consequences of their decisions. All right, one of those options and consequences would be, let's say that your buyer is under contract on a property and they have inspection contingencies attached to their home. They go through their contingency period, they get their inspection. At that point, you want to give them options of what they can do to apply if the conditions of the property were, one, not as expected, or two, not as disclosed. Okay, so you're going to want to give them options. You're also going to want to let them know the consequences of those options. I always like to tell clients, okay, now that we have the information and now that you have additional information that maybe wasn't disclosed or known by the seller at the time that the home was listed, and we know that we need a new hot water tank, or we know that there's knob and tube buried in the house somewhere, this is what we can do. We can now ask the seller to make the repairs before closing, and the seller can say yes, they can say no, or they can come back with another option somewhere in between. We can terminate the transaction and you can walk away from the property, or you can decide that this repair is something that you're willing to do post-close and we can close. So with all of these options, understand that the seller also has options, and should this transaction terminate, based on your contract, you are likely, never say the words will, you are likely or you may have the option to receive your hand money back. However, the money invested in things such as the inspection or the appraisal, if it's already done, will be lost. So those are the consequences of not trying to work it out. A lot of times we get buyers who see an inspection report and then just panic. Okay. And they're like, I went out and I'm going to get all my money back. And that's, so it's important for us to educate before they make the offer, while they're in the offer, and then after the offer has closed, so that everybody has a clear understanding of the steps and what their rights are and what their responsibilities are within the contract. All right. Why buyer consultations matter. Okay, so we all know about listing consultations with sellers. Like, we go out, we have that pre-listing consultation, and we're trying to win the business from the seller. But often we don't think about buyer consultations. And buyer consultations, especially for a first-time home buyer, are so important. They're also important for second-time home buyers or even seasoned home buyers. If it's an investor, just so that you can ensure that, one, they remember the steps, and two, they know your specific steps and your personal boundaries. So control the process. You need to set expectations very clearly. You need to provide the education, whether they say they know it or not. You need to establish your professionalism with your clients, because this reduces issues later and it increases the overall loyalty that the buyer will have with you going forward. If you don't provide a consultation, you are guaranteed to have chaos later. Okay. I talk to a lot of agents who say, I don't understand why consumers think it's okay to call me at 10 p.m. on a Saturday. Well, the answer is clear. You did not set personal boundaries and expectations for how you're running your business, which tells me you didn't have that initial consultation when they hired you. Think about when you've hired anybody in your life, whether that's a contractor or a plumber or an attorney or a dentist or any professional field. You don't just walk into a place and have no consultation. I know if I'm going to do anything different, say to my hair, I have to go in and I have to have a hair appointment consultation to speak with my hairdresser, to see what I want to do, to see if that's even possible, and to explain what it's going to cost, when the appointment is going to occur, and how long it is going to take. Even my hair salon does consultations because it is good business practice to set up those expectations in advance. Understand, as new real estate professionals, it is completely appropriate for you to set working hours. Okay. And it's okay to tell consumers that you have working hours. My working hours are from 9 a.m. until 7 p.m. Or on Saturdays and Sundays, I do take time away to spend with my family. I will be available by phone most times between 9 and 2 those days. Or I show properties between this time and this time. Or I do require 24 hours advance notice before booking all appointments. I do not book appointments the same day. Instead of running around willy-nilly, like a chicken with your head cut off, like your shirt is on fire, like most brand new agents do, set your personal boundaries and set clear expectations with your clients in advance. Okay, so you need to have those conversations before you start the relationship. Now, the way that it should flow is very simple. First, when you're talking to a new client, especially a buyer, you want to have an introduction period where you're introducing yourself, who you are, what you do. You want them to introduce themselves, who they are, what they do, and you want to start building rapport from that point. Building rapport is very simple. It's just asking open-ended questions to get the client to start speaking to you about who they are and what's important to them. You want to find common ground with somebody. So let's say I'm at an appointment and, the guy says, hey, my name is Jim. Yeah, I work in the oil and gas field. I have a family. I'm originally from, Texas, moved here to Ohio, and I'm a huge Ohio State fan. Okay, great. Well, my common ground, because, one, I'm not a guy. I don't work in the oil and gas field. I've never been to Texas. I've never relocated to Ohio, but my family is a huge Buckeyes fan. Huge. Like, you come to my house during football season and it is Buckeyes everywhere. My dog is literally named Buckeye because my husband and my sons are huge Ohio State fans, and my daughter graduated from Ohio State. So that's my common ground. To say, oh, you're a Buckeyes fan. Oh, my family's huge on the Buckeyes. That's all, you know what I mean? So you find that common ground, that one tidbit, that one item that you could potentially have in common. And then you start there and you start building that out and talking to them about that. Next, you want to get a clear understanding of what their goals are. What is the reason for the move? What is the reason why they're buying now? What drives them to get into that new house? So is it because they're relocating and, they have to move to a new area? Is it because they've been a renter and they're tired of paying rents that keep going up? Do they need a bigger house because they're expecting another child? Or do they need a bigger yard because they now want to get a puppy? Or is the home that they're living in just needs too much work and they're looking for lower maintenance and an easier solution to their home life? Figure out what those goals are. Figure out what they need. This is where you're figuring out what they need. And then take it a step more and find out what they want. So, okay, well, we know what you need now in a perfect world. And I'm not saying we're going to find the perfect of the perfect. It checks, all of the boxes in both categories, but what would you want? Oh, well, we need the bigger yard and we need the bigger house because we're having a baby. And, we'd like to get a labradoodle. But it'd also be nice to have a garage because with the bigger yard comes, more grass to mow. And I'd like to get a riding mower. Okay, great. That's your want list. All right. See how that works? Then you want to go into explaining the process step by step of real estate. So we usually do the buyer consultation at a property. And depending on who you ask, in the industry outside of Realty One, somebody may give you different opinions on how you should treat new buyers. But tried and tested over 20 years, I can promise you that these steps actually work. So you're going to start explaining the process of, okay, well, we've seen this property today, and I know that you're just starting the process, but really now we have to lay the framework for you to get into your home. All right. So we've gone through and I've understood your goals. And now that we know your goals and your potential price point, let's go through the process of getting you pre-approved. Once you're pre-approved, that's going to help us understand what payment that you're comfortable with, because at the end of the day, it's all about how much do you have to bring to closing and is that monthly payment comfortable for you? And we want to know those things when we're looking at homes. So you're going into that discussing financing with them and you're helping them get pre-approved. There's one adage in real estate that says, I don't show anybody anything. I don't talk to anybody. I don't open a door unless people are pre-approved. I detest that. For all of you new agents that are listening now, I detest that. Your job, your literal job, is to help people achieve home ownership. And the pre-approval process is a foundation of that. So when new home buyers come to you, they hire a real estate agent because they don't know how to do it on their own. And getting that pre-approval is part of that. That is part of your job, is to explain the pre-approval process, how we do it, and then help them achieve that pre-approval. So never turn away a client that isn't pre-approved. It doesn't mean that they can't be. It doesn't mean that they're lazy. It doesn't mean that they don't know how to use Google. It means that they are reaching out to a realtor so they can find that trust in somebody who can help guide them and direct them to the right place to do that. Okay. So again, setting up your expectations with your personal space and your working hours and what you expect of them and what they should expect of you. Okay. So structure creates confidence for both people. What should be covered when you're going over all of this? Your timeline. So when do they need to close by? When do they want to be in their new home by? Communication standards. Do they prefer call? Do they prefer to be texted? Do they prefer to be emailed? Who's going to be the primary point of contact? So if you have a couple and you have two people there, who's going to be the primary point of contact? That was always my thing. Like, I'll talk to you both, but we need somebody who's going to be taking the reins and steering this ship. Who is it? Showing processes. You're going to want to go over the way that you're scheduling showings, your lead time for scheduling showings, what has to happen. So it's important, especially with first-time homebuyers, to let them know and understand, hey, I need 24-hour advance notice before we get into places. Why? One, because I do have other clients. I have, other obligations to my career and to my family. We also have to coordinate with listing agents and sellers to ensure that we can have access to the property in adequate time and that we're not overlapping with any other showings. It also gives me the opportunity to get the data and the research items before we arrive at the home. That way, when you have questions, I could potentially, and I should know the answers at that point. You want to go over etiquette at properties. So what is the etiquette? So when we go into the properties, we will stay together. We will not, especially in owner-occupied properties, allow children to climb on things, to get into things, to be unmonitored within the home. Understand that most homes have video and audio surveillance. So sometimes thoughts should be inside thoughts. We will have a meeting area outside away from the video cameras where we will discuss any confidential or financial information. Please remove your shoes whenever you come in for showings, especially if it is muddy outside. There are certain things that are non-negotiables. That is, do not get into the seller's personal items. Do not go through paperwork. Do not take photography at the house without permission. This is not a time to see the seller's personal items. You're looking at the home only. All right. Market conditions. You should be discussing market conditions. Is it a seller's market? Is it a buyer's market? Is it a balanced market? And then also offer strategies. What are your non-negotiables for your offer strategies? Okay. What are some things with certain houses that are non-negotiable? If the client is looking into fixer-uppers or foreclosed homes, there's certain things or certain nuances of that are going to need to be discussed with that client so they have a clear understanding and expectation of what's going to happen next. So now we talk about seller consultations and why they matter. A lot of the same reasons. So they build trust, they help you with pricing strategy, they reduce price objections, set realistic expectations, discover any potential pitfalls early, and it helps you to design a marketing plan. So sellers hire confidence, not desperation. The last thing you want to go in and do with a seller is act desperate. Like, list with me. I really need the listing. I'll do it for the cheapest. A lot of sellers, even if they seem to be commission driven, are actually not. Sellers want to know what you can do and what they're paying for. And that's the biggest disconnect when we're listing properties. I think a lot of times agents just walk in with a listing, and I know this. They walk in with a listing document, a business card, and a smile. And understand that most sellers will talk to 3 agents before they select their listing agent. I always wanted to be number 3. So if a seller told me, I am interviewing other agents, that's great. I'd love to be your last one. When's your latest appointment? And I would come into a house, I'd sit down at the dining room table, and I would kind of giggle because I would see 2 other people there. They would have their listing contracts not filled out, completely blank, that they left with the seller, by the way, which is a terrible idea, and a business card attached to a paperclip. And that's what they brought. Meanwhile, I open up my marketing presentation that is bound, binded, and in full color. A whole presentation about me, the company, and what I can provide to the seller. All of my value proposition in this well-constructed book. And I knew from that moment, the moment I walked in and sat down at that table, these clients were mine. Why? Because I actually did the seller consultation properly. I went through, I built the trust. I gave them the pricing strategy. I helped, with their price objectives. I gave them the data and the research. I helped them to set realistic expectations where somebody else came in and said, oh, you want to list it out? You want to list it for $25,000 more than I think it's worth? It's fine, I'll do it. Like, no, let's talk about realistic expectations and how listing it too high could actually cost you money. Okay. We go through the house and we find the repair items that could cost them their sale, which puts their home back on the market, which leads to what? Further price reductions, right? So making sure that you have complete seller consultations is key. So what does that structure look like? Rapport and figuring out the motivation behind the sale. Okay. Market overview of what's going on in the market. Your pricing strategy with your CMA, with your data, your marketing plan, what you offer, why you offer it, and what it costs. Timeline and expectations, and then your next steps. What I always found was very powerful with sellers is having a commission breakdown. A lot of times sellers will say, well, what do you charge? And that's the first question out of their mind. Well, what do you charge? What do you charge? What's your commission rate? And my answer was not always, well, I charge 4%, or I charge 3%, or I charge whatever. My response was, well, what do you want to pay? And they would say, what do you mean? Well, just like anytime you go anywhere, if I go to a restaurant, if I order just an appetizer, I'm paying for just the appetizer. If I'm ordering an appetizer and an entree, then I'm paying for the appetizer and the entree. Like, I get what I'm paying for. So my question is, you tell me what you want to pay, or you can select the services that I have that you feel are valuable, and then we'll build a commission rate based upon what you're getting or what your desires are. And that kind of sets the seller back, because nobody says that. Like, isn't that a concept? Isn't that a concept? That instead of blurting out something where we have no idea whether or not it's going to be well received, we return the question with a question. What's your rate? I don't know. What do you want to pay? What do you mean? Well, it just depends on what services you would like. We can build something that works for you. So the answer is, I don't have a set commission rate. I do have set services and a price point for each one of those services. But which one of those are valuable to you, we haven't discovered yet. So I'll go through my marketing presentation. I'll let you know all of the services that are available to you. You pick out the ones you like, and then we'll build a price around those services, right? All right, handling pricing. So price with confidence. Use data, not opinions. You want to use data. Explain the market conditions thoroughly. Set realistic outcomes. Stay calm and professional at all times. Never pressure a seller to list if they are not ready to list, and never scare a seller into listing a property. If you scare a seller into listing a property, this is a listing violation that will cost you your career. So please don't do it. Use RPR as a tool to assist you on pricing and market conditions. Your showing appointments are your interview. Every showing is an opportunity. Clients may not remember every home, but they will remember how you made them feel during the process. So remember, you are their concierge to their home. Every showing is an opportunity. So clients are evaluating your professionalism while you are on that appointment. And your communication sets the tone for the entire relationship. You know how we talk about in real estate that, like, the curb appeal of the property, the curb appeal. And why do we say that? Because you make up your mind within 10 seconds of pulling up to that house, whether you think that that home is valuable or not based on its curb appeal. So think about that for yourself. That first appointment matters so much. How you stand when you meet them, how you shake your hand and the firmness of your handshake, the confidence in your voice, they are going to remember those first 10 seconds forever. That is going to set the tone. So ensure that your first appointment is just important as your last appointment with that client, because it matters. Your guidance will impact the seller's or the client's decisions, and their decisions, when we're talking about real estate, could be 30 years or a lifetime from now. So please understand that your guidance is so important, and it's very important for us to take care of our clients. Buyers often decide if they can trust you within just a few showings. So building trust is the number one goal. Best practices for showings, professional standards that set you apart. I have found in my career over 20 years that common sense isn't always common sense. If you already know these, good for you. If you don't, that's okay, because, you know, we all start somewhere. So confirm appointments and access details in advance. Use showing time to arrange appointments with listing agents unless otherwise noted on the MLS. You must have a confirmed appointment before you access that property. Never at any time are you permitted to enter somebody else's home without the confirmation of the listing agent. What happens if you do that? You could lose your MLS access. You could lose your realtor designation. In extreme cases, you could lose your license, and the seller has the right to call the police and have you arrested for trespass. So please don't do it. If you cannot access the property through the lockbox and the door, never climb through a window on a property. Yes, that's happened. Do not climb through a window. Do not jimmy open the door. Do not damage the property at any time. I'm giving you these examples because these are examples of things that I have had agents do in my career, or I have heard of agents doing in their careers. So I'm giving you this because, again, common sense isn't always common sense. Arrive early and review property information. Bring the MLS printout with you as well as all supplements. I get it that we're in a digital age. I still bring the MLS printout as well as all supplements with me in paper form because, one, I want to have access to that the minute that the client asks me any questions. Two, I also want to give them that information to take home with them after the showing. Set expectations before entering the home. So this is a good chance to remind them, hey, please remove your shoes. Please stay together. Please don't let the cat out. Whatever instructions that the listing agent has provided you that's specific to that home, just please remind them of those expectations before you enter the home. Ask thoughtful questions and listen to their responses. So as you're going through the home and they're looking at the kitchen, you can ask them, so what do you guys think about this kitchen? Do you think this is enough counter space for you? Do you think this is enough storage space for you? What do you think about this color scheme? That's how you get to know them. And also it helps people feel like you are truly and genuinely vested in what they want and what they need. Offer guidance without influencing decisions. So if somebody says, well, you know, I really like this home, but I wish there was a pantry. I really wanted a walk-in pantry. Like it's one of the things on my non-negotiable list. You should never tell them, oh, you could put a pantry right here, no problem. We'll just take down this wall and you could put it here. And well, come to find out that's a structural wall and they buy the property. They have a contractor come out later post-closing. They find out it's a structural wall and they sue you for misleading them and saying they could take down that wall. These are real things that happen. These are real things that happen. Better answer would be, oh, that would be a lovely idea to put a pantry here. Let's get a contractor out here during the inspection period if you decide you want to put an offer in on this house to see if that's possible and what it would cost, right? That would be the better idea. That would be the better answer. All right, never rush a client. Let them look at their pace. If a client is taking a long time to look at a house, it's usually because they're interested in that house. Okay, so let them look at their own pace. You should be there with them, assisting, but don't rush them through the property. Avoid negative comments about the property. Keep your personal opinions to yourself. So avoid negative comments about the property. One, you could deter them from buying, which could be considered steering them out of a neighborhood, which is illegal. That's a fair housing item. Two, remember there's video and audio devices in the house and the seller could actually come after you legally for disparaging comments about their property that were unfounded or untrue. And that is a licensing violation that a lot of agents get hit with these days because remember, somebody's always watching. All right. Provide feedback. After the showing, give honest feedback to the listing agent and thank them for their time. Again, you don't want to disparage, but you could say, oh, well, my clients did take a look at the property. There was a lot of positives about it. Unfortunately, for the condition, they thought it was just a little overpriced and wasn't a good fit for them. Or you can say they really wanted a pantry and there's not a great place, like there's not a pantry there and there's really not a great place to add one. So unfortunately, this was a no-go, but it's a cute house and I'll show it in the future, okay? Your role as a real estate professional is to observe and guide, not sell the home. Safety and professionalism, protect yourself and your client. So you need to verify client identity before showings. You must ask for ID every time. You should never have a client sign anything because remember, whether it's a BAC, whether it's an offer, whether it's a listing, whether it's a consumer notice, you are asking somebody to sign a legal document. You must ask for and receive a copy of their identification. This is non-negotiable. Always get a copy of their identification. Use approved showing apps and procedures. Share showing schedules with somebody else that you trust. So that way, if you stop responding, they know your last location. I like to use Life 360. It is a free app in your app store, and I'm connected to my family on Life 360. So if for any reason I go dark or I go, off the grid, they can see the location of my phone, and they can see actually where I went throughout the day, so they can kind of track where I've been. I think it's a great one. If you're on a team, I used a similar app with my team members when I had my team, so that our entire team could kind of see where we were during our working hours. What's great is you can toggle it on or off too. So if you have somebody that's not your family and like you don't want them to see what you're doing when you're not at work, you can toggle it off, and then you just disappear and it says your app is off. And then in the morning you toggle it on. You can also have set hours of when it can see you. So it's a really valuable device, and I really suggest for everybody's safety that you do that. Trust your instincts at all time. If something feels off, it probably is. Okay. And there is no shame in saying, hey, I don't want to work with somebody because they just give me the heebie-jeebies. That's okay. Trust your instincts and maintain professional boundaries. Please maintain professional boundaries. Do not get too close to clients. Do not get too physical with clients. I get it that a lot of people, they want to hug, they want to do, you know what I mean? But you do have to maintain those professional boundaries, because even if it feels like the other person is just like a friend now, let's not lose sight that they are your client. Okay, so professional boundaries are important. Safety is not about fear, it is about being aware. So professionalism standards, you want to dress appropriately for the situation. You want to avoid ripped, torn, or too flashy clothing. Absolutely avoid any revealing clothing. Avoid oversharing your personal information. Never, ever, ever, ever tell a client where you live. Let me repeat that. Never tell a client where you live. So it's okay to share some things that could be common. Like I said, when I was building rapport, oh, my family, they love the Ohio State Buckeyes, that's okay. But I wouldn't also tell my clients, well, this is where I live, or, this is where I'm going to be on Saturday with my two very beautiful nieces. Like, I'm not going to share those things. So just be careful you're not oversharing personal information. There are people out there who do not have your best interest at heart, and there are people who are very good at disguising the crazy. So please protect you and protect your family. Never let a client block you in your vehicle. You should be parking on the street if possible, or parking in an area where you can get out. So me as an agent, if I could not park on the street, I could only park in the driveway. If the driveway was 2-car, I would park on one side of the driveway, and I would park at the very back of the driveway so that nobody could park behind me. I would park on the street, and I would allow my clients to pull in the driveway. So I would instruct them, like, I'll be parked on the street. I want you to pull in the driveway. I never allow myself to be blocked in by somebody else. And if something would happen, you need to remain calm and in control at all times. You must remain in control. If you look like you're panicked, it is easier for somebody to take advantage of you. So remain calm. Just be very vigilant when you're working with people. Like if you're going down a set of steps, allow the person to go ahead of you, not behind you. You want to keep the client in front of you at all times until there is that level of trust and that you understand that that person, is trustworthy. If something feels off, you are empowered to leave. You do not have to call me. You do not have to discuss your choices with me. If you feel unsafe, I want you to go out to your car, lock yourself in, get to a safe destination, and call the police, and then call me in that order. If something feels off, you will never hear me say you should have stayed, okay? Objections and difficult conversations. So some objections you can have is clients are thinking, clients need clarity, clients need reassurance, clients are scared, clients lack education and knowledge. So what are some of the things that those people could tell you? So if a client tells you, yeah, I mean, I like the house, but we're just not sure, that probably means that the client is still thinking about it. So I would dig a little deeper with that client and say, okay, let's talk it out about some of the things that you're unsure of, and start to whittle in on those objections and turn that into an opportunity. Clients need more clarity. Like, oh, I like the house, but there was snow on the roof and, we're just really on a tight budget. And okay, client needs clarity. Well, lucky for you, that it's going to get warmer. So why don't we take a couple days, let that snow come off the roof. Then we're going to make another appointment to go out to kind of look at the roof. I also suggest that if you're going to move forward with this house, we can have the roof inspected by a home inspector to make sure. I'm also going to make a call to the listing agent to see if they have any receipts of when that roof was put on and if there's any type of warranties in place for the roof. How does that sound? Oh, that sounds amazing. So that's an opportunity. It's an opportunity for you to dig in. So when a client gives you that objective, that is your opportunity. That is your opportunity to dig in and find out what's really eating at them and how you can overcome that obstacle to provide the opportunity to write an offer. All right. So when a client tells you something like, oh, I need to think about it more. Most agents are going to say, oh, okay, no problem. Well, just call me if you decide. No, dig in. Why are you thinking about it? What are you thinking about? What answers can I give you so you don't have to think about it anymore? Like, let me help. So dig in on those items. And I got ahead of myself. Here we go. You'll hear these things commonly. We want to wait. We're not ready. We want to think about it. We want to talk to other agents. We want to save money. We want to wait for interest rates to come down. Again, dig in on all of these. We want to wait. Okay. Well, let's talk about waiting. What are we waiting for? We're not ready. Okay, well, what steps do we need to put in place in the future to assist you to be ready to buy a house? We want to think about it. Great. What items are we thinking about? We want to talk to other agents. All right, that's a big one. I want to talk to other agents. Oh, I'm sorry. Can we discuss what I can do better so that you don't, so that you don't need to talk to other agents? Is there something that you need that I am unable to provide? And then you can start whittling down on those things. So understanding that being prepared for objectives does help you build confidence with your clients, and confidence ends up equating to closings. So just understanding that you're going to hit these obstacles, but it's not just enough to say, oh, okay, no problem. I'll talk to you later. No, whittle in on it. All right, so some simple framework for getting more information out of those is to listen closely and listen fully. You also want to acknowledge their concerns. If they say that, we just need to wait. Oh, I understand the concern of wanting to wait. But let me ask you this, what are we waiting for? All right. And then provide clarity. If they say, well, we want to wait for interest rates to come down. Okay. I completely understand that. However, I do want to give you some information that interest rates are not expected to go down as much as you may believe. And an interest rate only reducing by the projected forecast of, 0.25% is minimal to your savings. However, if we calculate out how much you're paying in rent over the same time period, as opposed to the mortgage you would be paying, you're actually losing $400 a month or whatever that calculation is. And I love hitting clients with that because they don't think like, okay, you're paying 100% now renting. You're paying 100% now. But we're worried about whether the interest rate is going to be 6% or 6.5. You're paying 100% now. All right. So help them understand that. Do the math. Again, bring them the data, give them clarity, and then guide them on the next steps. Tell them what their options are. Yes, the interest rates are 6.5, but guess what? In 6 months, if they drop down to 4%, which I don't believe they're going to, you can always refinance. But again, it's better than paying 100% now, which is what you're paying. And this home that you have fallen in love with is not going to be there in 6 months. All right. So you need to turn resistance into reassurance. Again, we don't want to force them to do anything, but we do want to give them guidance. We do want to give them the information and the education to make sound decisions. Objections or requests for more information 90% of the time. People are giving you objections because they don't understand. Clients object when they feel uncertain or overwhelmed. Your role is to slow the conversation, not win it, and calm, confident responses build trust. So listen fully, do not interrupt, allow clients to finish their thought, avoid preparing your response while they speak, and listening shows respect and lowers defensiveness. Just a tip is repeat a section back to them so that they know you heard it and understood it. So what I am hearing is that you want to wait until the interest rates come down to buy. Is that correct? All right, so that they know you're listening. Acknowledge the concern. Validate the emotion behind the objection. Use phrases like, that's a valid concern, or I understand why you feel that way. Acknowledgement does not mean that you agree with them. It just means that you're understanding with them and that you're empathetic to why they're feeling that way. And empathy does not mean that you agree. So ask questions. Can you tell me a little bit more about why you feel that way? And then provide clarity, not pressure. Educate using facts, data, and experiences. Nobody really knows what interest rates will do in the future, but we can calculate what it would look like to wait a bit given your own unique situation. And how we talked about they're paying 100% in rent now, right? So keep explanations simple and neutral, avoid guarantees or absolutes, and clarity replaces fear with confidence. So again, you don't want to force them or pressure them into anything, but again, those objections are usually because they don't understand. They're missing a piece of the puzzle that you have not yet delivered to them. Whittling down on it helps you figure out where your pitfall is. Okay, they are not 100% confident because I missed a step. Now, what step did I miss? Or what didn't I explain fully? Or what did I fail to tell them? And then that by reverting it back in, this helps you fill the hole. Guide them to the next step. So offer a clear, low pressure path forward. Here's what I recommend we do next, or would it make sense to explore this option? Professionals guide, clients decide. And objections often appear right before commitment. You will not get a commitment or an offer or a listing contract until you hit an objection. And then you can prove to that client that you can overcome that objection. All right, so don't see it as an obstacle, see it as an opportunity, because if you overcome the objection, what comes next? Comes the offer, which comes the closing, or which comes the listing, which comes the closing. All right, so it is an important part of the process. All right, you're not on homework. Schedule at least one consultation. Schedule a real in-person buyer consultation or do a mock consultation with your mentor. And I want all of you to review the One Marketing presentation on roguagent.com and get confident using it with your seller clients. If you want a printed bound version of the One Marketing presentation, please send me an email and I will have one delivered to your office of choice for you within 7 days. Okay, they're very nice, they're very easy to use, and there is a whole training on ROGU Agent explaining how to use the One Marketing presentation with confidence. All right, perfect. Well, let me know who has a question, comment, any story to share. Anybody? You guys are quiet today. No? All right. Well, as always, I will stay on the line until everybody is gone in case anybody wants to ask me anything in confidence without being part of a group. But thank you guys so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. And if you need anything, my phone is always on. Well, at least until 8 p.m. anyway, personal boundaries. All right. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.